Masterman firms can have one as bubbles. The AI bubble is popping right now. Long-term profits are the only solution. Crash for 24. AI hyper valuation, the strategy for AI bubble. AI companies have to start making money. Households terrifying market research are warning about the future. The AI boom is valuation store cracks are obvious. We could be in a bubble. Innovate 24. AI companies will need to turn a profit. Investors pricing unsustainable growth, and it's worse than .com. Fully 24. The current AI bubble is bigger than the 90s tech bubble. Hot time companies today more overvalued than during the tech bubble. Asphalt who has contract will grow. The defense sector guarantees returns bubble must have the potential to burst in the military industrial complex is not larger sums of public dollars makes it too big to fail. Pop bubble wrecks havoc. .com proves before like 18, 100 million investors lost $5 trillion in stock market. These facts lead to recession. Rebuttal 22. The bursting of the bubble can crash the entire economy is a recession. Recession goes nuclear. Mob 21. Couplings global systems enable risks to snowball into full-blown crisis. Economic stressors include geopolitical realignment. Balloon effects include Iran war, U.S.-China confrontation, Korean proliferation, India, Pakistan, nuclear war, nuclear confrontation between NATO and Russia. New core cause extinction. Star 15. A nuclear war would create an environment too cold and dark to grow food humans to diminish forever. Contention to is backsliding. The share surveillance on the border is unequal. Finnegan 23. The U.S. has been outsourcing migration policies to Mexico. Mexico has taken on unprecedented leverage responsibility for U.S. migration policies. Mexico has used the issue to gain unprecedented leverage over politicians on both sides of the aisle. Year 24. Mexico has been able to use immigration as means of leverage with both AMLO as withheld cooperation on migration enforcement as means of gaining concessions in other areas regardless of who wins the U.S. election. Specifically, Mexico is using their leverage as blackmail as they turn to authoritarianism. Burnout 24. U.S. officials are looking the other ways. Mexican President Obrador dismantles the country's democratic institutions empirically. Levy 23. Mexico has the ability to curb the power of the agency that oversees elections. The country took another step backward towards the authoritarian path. The U.S. has cautiously maneuvered to avoid losing Mexico cooperation on the border. Affirming takes away Mexico's leverage. 424 to secure the border. The U.S. does not have to depend on any other entity. It only needs leadership with the will to enforce immigration laws already in place. The effects of authoritarianism free from Mexico's thumb. Martinez 24. The Biden administration should publicly promote the defense of human rights in Mexico, raise its voice in clear defense of press freedom and promoting transparency and accountability. Mexico backsliding spills over Apple. The consequences of backsliding spill over into the international realm in the form of threats, aggression, or violence, leading backsliding Mexico. Extinction. Battlefield 23. World dominated by totalitarian states. More war, less cooperative, worse at responding to risk of extinction. More likely to have major war collapse and extinction. More likely by raising the chance of weapons of mass destruction being loose. Cross-apps are contentious trade cartels. Caution 23. Cartels traffic 1 million weapons every year. 85% traffic trades to the United States. A major breakthrough in arms trafficking to take down entire cartel networks. The rest is 10. Limitations to surveillance at the border hinder U.S. efforts to detect and seize southbound arms of the border. Agencies lack systematic gathering data and information. Criminal 23. Increased deployment of technology and intelligence is helping investigations. Everhard 24. Firearms are symbols of cartel profit, power, and prestige. Cartels use these weapons to engage in battle with their enemies and exert control over their claimed territory. Cartels cause instability. March 20. Cartels create regional instability that foreign competitors can leverage to gain access that mutate into war. Call 23. 3 years from now, the Mexican cartels are more powerful than the Mexican state itself. Revenue per year has gone up 14-fold in the last couple of years. Instability goes nuclear. Lindsay 13. Latin American instability provided opportunities for rivals to threaten stability, security, heightened level of competition among great powers that lead to countries that have direct competition with nuclear power. Extinction cross that talk. Contention of border politics. Trump is going to win most recent evidence. Graph 24. Trump is expected to win by 6 electoral votes in November. Harris is not far enough heading polls to win 2016. Proof. Brooke 24. Clinton led by 5% points at that stage and ended up losing. Polls don't care. Adequately capture Trump voters. Scouts 24. The white working class Trump coalition are less likely to participate in surveys and turn out only when Trump is on the ballot. Trump will increase surveillance of elected Gallup 23. Trump promised the largest deportation operation in history. He will invoke the Alien Sedition Act to approve the surveillance and detention of immigrants at the border. Biden locking in the only way to sway the election into Kamala's favor. Author 24 and swing states are likely to decide the 2024 presidential election. Immigration and the border are deciding issues that could determine the election. The president has to secure the border. It's the best way to ensure victory. Redfield 53% rate legal immigration is extremely important in determining their vote. 54% hold Harris responsible for the current lack of control of the U.S. border. Democrats recognize that immigration is a vulnerability for them. Re-electing Trump ensures extinction. Harm 23. Putin will destroy Ukraine. China will take Taiwan. North Korea attacks South Korea. Triggers a nuclear war. The EPA will be gutted efforts to mitigate the climate rollback. Fossil fuel extraction will explode. Trump is elected civilization ending weather and the death of much of humanity's assured cross-steps are independent of Kamala. The act is key to Senate races. Broad 24. John Spencer of Montana is at risk of losing his seat as Democrats. The losing Senate. A new poll found Republican Tim Sheehy has a tester 50% to 44%. After the surge, 24. Focus on border reflects a larger strategy for Republican Senate candidates in battleground states across the country. The Senate Republican Congress and after we spent $50 million on attacking Kessler immigration, same impact for GOP Congress. They listened to Trump holding 24. Trump urged Republican senators to be billions of dollars to Ukraine. Cross-ups are.
I prefer to be
Yeah.
Contention one is trafficking. Stricter border surveillance forces people to turn to smugglers, resulting in kidnapping. Extortion migrants and death of migrants. Reviews 23. Restricted immigration policies funnel migrants in clandestine routes that force migrants to turn to smugglers. When migrants cannot pay the high price tag of smuggler services, they get coerced into labor schemes to pay back debts. This happened to the U.S. invested into border surveillance. There's a direct relation. Japan since 17, a 10% increase in enforcement increases the price by 4.9%. Cartels and smuggling rings use tunnels to circumvent surveillance. Site 20. Under the U.S.-Mexico borders, miles of tunnels travel north to the border wall roads, drug trafficking, and human smuggling is on display. Surveillance is not effective. Phil 23, the most promising tech to search for the smuggling tunnels can only provide an accurate image up to 15 meters. Tunnels in Mexico are 27 meters. The result is human trafficking violence. Finocchio 01. Smugglers can hold their clients hostage if they or their families cannot pay the entire smuggling fee. Many migrants are held in slave-like conditions until they're able to pay off their fees. Contention 2 is trade. U.S.-Mexico trade is at an all-time high at the border. Mahoney 24 against a backdrop of soaring U.S.-Mexico trade along the border regions. Mexico is the U.S. top trading partner. Current X-ray tech is efficient. Wait times are low. Until 2024. Solutions to address traffic at the U.S.-Mexico border includes 559 projects to reduce border crossings by 60%. App wait times will significantly get worse. Vasquez 24. DHS plan to implement X-ray tech to check 100% of vehicles. Cross times would be double. Scanning every vehicle is detrimental to trade. Flynn noted warn scanning is detrimental to trade. Delays from inspection queues. Equipment generates more alarms than human capacity can result in. The need to diverse containers through inspection engender congestion. Even if more than adequate investments are made, the disruption significantly degrades supply chains. AI cannot solve. There's a shortage of people to manage systems. Gram 24. AI and technology alone was not a viable solution. Advanced technology isn't enough. Trade would shut down. Strickler 24. 1 million people crossing the border every day, scanning every vehicle would shut down trade. Even if 100% aren't scanned, trade decreases by at least 1/3. Weighing 20. Analysis of 50+ barriers around the world find that they reduce trade between neighboring countries as much as 31%. A country that is concerned about border security increases inspection at legal ports of entry, a measure that would increase shipping times and costs. The construction of technology itself would decrease trade. Ramirez 23. CBP inspections and construction is expected to shut down lanes for the next 6 months. Reducing trade with Mexico would devastate our economy. Georgina 23. Restrictions on trade could reduce GDP by up to 12% over the long term. Contention. There's a card missing. I'll send it after. It's gonna be. Econ collapse and impact filter, escalates hotspots and sparks nuclear war. Mavic 21, couplings in global systems enable risks to snowball. Economic stressors to induce radical geopolitical realignment. The U.S. and China ripples will be felt afar. Analysis between the World War II and the Great Depression. History often repeats itself. Balloon effects, U.S.-China confrontation or nuclear confrontation between NATO and Russia. Bomb 15 extinction. Nuclear war causes severe environmental effects. Dramatic cooling, radiation. Human impacts are under study. Smoke from firestorms cause nuclear winter. Global fountain ensues, results in human extinction. Contention 3 is relations. U.S.-Mexico border cooperation is high now. A two-year strategy ensures sustained targeted investment. Low 23. AMLO spent $1.5 billion to improve smart border tech. A move shows neighborly cooperation. Agreements call for expanding visas, protection of refugees, both pledges hung smugglers, and help each other challenges. Specifically, Sheinbaum makes relations no well brittle. Rain 24. There's a reason to be hopeful. Defender view. Sheinbaum does not appear confrontational. Our problem-solving approach established a good base for working through crime, migration, and trade. Sheinbaum lived in the U.S. and knows its strengths. Understand the key mutual protection of renewable energy. Recent developments indicate a break. Moss 9 to 6. With mere weeks remaining before Sheinbaum, AMLO paused relations. Relations evolve over time. Can be quietly unpaused. It's a way to tell Americans is a purely domestic matter. Issues will be resolved by time. Sheinbaum takes over. Cut the card there. The AFDEX relations, unilateral border actions received terribly in Mexico. Shrisi 24. Effectiveness will turn on the Mexican government. Mexico has a legitimate right to protect its nationals, and the U.S. determine its own policy regarding entry. The U.S. cannot dictate what happens. Cooperation is critical. National policy may be faced by pressure, but countries driven by their own internal policy and challenges. Relations are key to renewables and climate co-op. Pascal 21. 2020 was a pivotal point for energy. Fossil fuels will run downwards. Climate central will be a central issue in the U.S.-Mexico relations. Benefit from coordination with Mexico and the United States. Mexico and the U.S. remain intertwined in global energy unfold and integration of renewable energy. Cut the card there. Renewables is the only way to solve warming extinction. Jacob 22. The world needs to transition to renewable. The threat increases each day. Past worst case scenarios and any human civilization that experience renewable energy will be instrumental in reducing fossil fuels. The current model is not sustainable. Key to this attainable. In the future, fossil fuels are the culprit for thermal instability that's illegal for severe weather, human life. I'll send the two impact cards.
And can you send Mark?
Sure. I'll just send the whole thing. The mark is gonna be in a new email. But yeah, it's just in the bottom.
So it's the new stuff in the body and then marked after.
No, the mark is, I just sent the case again. But it's marked with the new part.
Okay. Good for cross.
Yeah.
Let's talk about trafficking. So all of your impacts are about trafficking going up, but do you real link saying trafficking increases or just that prices go up?
Either way, the impact still triggers because our impact is that if prices go up, then the money that they have to pay back increases, so then the labor scheme increases part of the lifespan, so that violence is prevented.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
On politics, what are the cards at the bottom about Joe Tester? What's the
Yeah. Okay. So right now, Republicans are going to win the Senate, but affirming solves this because right now, Republican senators and congressmen, who are running for the election, are saying, okay, Democrats have awful border policies, but affirming solves this because if Democrats pass stricter border policies, then Republicans can't use that rhetoric, and then those Republican senators end up losing the election. Could I take the question?
Can I have a follow-up on politics? So your argument is that in the election year, where Harris and Trump are on the ballot, when people go to a poll, they're gonna go, I'm voting for Trump, and then I'm also gonna vote for the blue senator on my same ballot, and I'm not gonna stick with the same party.
Wait. That's not what we're saying
Well,
at all. I'm saying that not only does the affirmative help Kamala win, it also helps
I'm
Democratic
saying even if you
senators
pass
win. Can I take a question?
when people
Can I
go to
take
the
a
ballot,
question?
I'm just gonna finish talking. When people go to the ballot and they end up voting for which senator, they do not go from, I'm gonna vote for Trump, and then I'm gonna vote for the blue Democratic senator in my state. They go Trump, then the Republican senator. Because in every single election year that has ever had a Senate, re-election, they've always voted same parties, which is why every single.
That's
also why
empirically disproven. That's just not true. That's just not true at all.
Can you name a year in which the president has been on the ballot at the same time Senate elections have been on the ballot and the state flipped?
Wait. Senate elections are on the ballot every single time.
Yeah, only 1/3 of it.
What?
The current Senate elections that are about to flip,
we're
going to flip Republican because Trump is on the ballot as well.
Yes, we spent 2 minutes on this question. Can I take one?
Go ahead.
Alright, let's talk about relations. Do other countries do renewable energy, and does the U.S. do renewable energy with other countries?
It's most
or by itself?
It's most important with Mexico.
Why?
Well, because that's a big part of our relationship. It's
if we just did renewables ourselves without Mexico.
Well, I think we can solve the issue ourselves. I think it's a pretty cooperative issue. Climate change is not one country that can just solve it.
If every country goes to renewables except Mexico, does that solve your impact?
If you can prove that every single by affirming that every single country will go to renewables except Mexico,
We don't need to prove that. That's just
Yes,
your
you do.
uniqueness. No, we don't. We don't need to say by proving that doing the app increases renewables. We just need to say for your uniqueness that renewables are up. Now you can take one.
So if sure, if you can prove that every single country currently is switching to renewables except Mexico, then you can get elected as well.
That's just not the argument. I have 4 seconds left.
I thought we were ending. It was good. What about you?
Well, that's close.
We're gonna take a little bit of prep, starting now.
Okay, that was 30 seconds. We'll send it out.
It's gonna be very fast. It will be.
Oh, it's low-key, you should probably flow the offs.
Okay, yeah, so it's gonna be their case and then 3 offs in the form of this ad.
But you can flow it, it's like basically 3 new pieces of independent offs.
Yeah.
So you can flow it on
I would put on another sheet. Alright, doc should be sent.
Do you have a word count?
Like,
Okay, I'll it is.
Yeah, it's about 1200.
Thank you.
letter cards at the bottom. Make everyone's life easier.
Wait. Okay, a little more prep. Starting now. Oh, okay, we're good. That was 5 seconds.
Okay. Everyone good? On my first word.
On trafficking fiber optic cables and security software, first performance capture, vaccine fiber extending to measure the backstory related vibration trigger, accelerated detect user measure change activity, buried underground, register to us, detecting tunnels. Second is under 16, the fiber rating circuit can provide an indication of walking, driving, zero 100 kilometers, with them, strong indication that can be used to detect submarines along with boundary modes and fibers. Three trafficking incidents quotes the problem absolved to afford no quantification and cartel straight turns impact. On trade first, I'm saying doesn't work is ridiculous, but evidence of political debate about the validity of trade, aka it's all just opinions for real research studies instead. Infrastructure is key. Andre 19 is critical to ensure personal energy, modernizing facility, increasing quantities of commerce, surveillance, consumer process. 22 confirms technology to more reliable border rates and algorithms to facilitate distribution and U.S. customer 18 is that when adaptation to the public economies, infrastructure will help cut down on response and frequency. If 2 years ago studies found the AI tech told us imagine what it can do now when it's even more developed. Delivery, new evidence tech robotics creates a top key for us in first summary. 3. Trade shut down the status quo, but if new technology will AI system can process these things. Go to relations. First term, relation that navigates the border crisis. Fernandez 24. U.S. Mexican relation on dangerous cruise and power drug cutters. Neighbor digital migration to the U.S. and our relation to deterioration also tender already high. Pastor 24. Tender rising the border disputing this Mexico. The security of the Mexico fall behind deliveries, putting the country ability to meet its obligation in series that without any from Mexico until Mexico on the shore wall. Also, 90 surveillance already increasing the air effect on trigger. Spelling 24. USDP is installing rapidly expanding existing visible and disguised for the along the U.S. border with Mexico. Also, D-Link. Mexican government comply with the U.S. government and forces street border control. ISIS 24. The Syrian state of Homeland Security Malware President Andres after sharp increase in the tempo of Mexican industry and progress forces an operation to intercept migrants and establish new ship points and migrants and Ukraine rules in countries areas such as San Diego. New president for business team parties is the exact same thing. Also, D-Link. Mexican relations too strong. No extended collapse for several reasons. Chip 15. These are the bilateral collaboration between security and police agencies and operators, and both governments recognize public security and share responsibility. Bilateral cooperation is increasing on regional and global issues, even if the two countries disagree on matters that remain natural partners. Also, 84.3% of Mexican after are tied to the U.S. Mexico realizing the U.S. There's no more where they go authoritarian because they can disperse your and we won't trade if they do. Also, dishad. U.S. will invest more in surveillance to China preventing real authoritarian and we're behind. Also, the U.S. is falling behind China AI. Understanding practical AI stability will second and RG surveillance necessitates the application of AI accelerating action. Match 44. Mexico border generates $100 million for AS average security efforts. Federal spending increasing blue market. Attracting investment from venture capital. U.S. can't afford to lose. Ukraine 18. Emerging tech may undermine nuclear stability by opening these systems. Balance of power. The dominant theory of war identifies rapid shift of primary cause of conflict. Invasion believes emerging tech provides with military advantage and may be willing to initiate conflict and could bring powers into direct conflict. Blue screen for protective autocrats might be not again. Also, another dishad. Pandemics. Post-COVID, major transmission routes are largely contained. Taylor 24. Country managed to agree to bolster ability to detect future pandemics by strengthening national capacities and coordination on disease spreads. But borders are unique. Study 20. Border regions tend to be annoying where countries don't pay attention and in fact catch diseases run rampant. The U.S. Mexican border experiences elevated risk of infection and pandemic monitoring is critical in immigration policies. Do not average are coming, but effective surveillance prevents accidental pandemics and interest containment. Living in 22. The risk of pandemics and rising population growth, urbanization, proximity to wildlife, increasing risk of animal viruses spilling over to humans to prevent tracking contained infection levels to stop spillover, contributing to global health outbreaks are inevitable, but pandemics are not 7 language in the formula louder. The rate of spillover appears to be increasing every year. Potential to start pandemic natural spillover is the most likely work to next pandemic explosive spread with more and more human antiviral exchange pandemic with challenging virus survival other species that drive the long term deaths, but animation and animal disease events detecting zoonotic viruses before they make leave. The faster spillovers detect these sooner. These might be contained to prevent the outbreak from going global. Dishad. Another impact on cartels. Pandemics. The next pandemic we zoonotic again come from illegal wildlife trade. Letter 21. Turn out the first zoonotic disease from rabbit. The more extensive looming pandemic depending on the rate of emerging zoonotic disease. Human having constructed optimal conditions for spillover wildlife trade is large facility of disease and travel routes and in different region permanent formation and the illegal trade system presenting unique risk and inspection or avoided transmission trap war. Court guidelines are disregarded. Cartels are driving for forced wildlife trafficking across the border. Drug 24. Mexican drug doesn't wildlife trafficking. Just 150% more structured cartels and these bases. The last power intelligence that who's active in the U.S. remains the world largest market is the size of scope. Disease are coming. 21. That pandemic could be considered more severe than we think. Cutting right there. Antibiotic diseases are hardly uniquely hard to cure. Like 21. The frequency of spillovers has increased while vaccination can eradicate zoonotic disease. Even if a vaccine is made, the disease will still exist in animals, leaving humans at risk. Extinction. Or 20. Humanity remains vulnerable to pandemics until the end of humanity and actions of the rest. But also we read the other piece of evidence. Go back to trafficking. Extinction outweighs so no trafficking. If everyone's dead, it prereqs to their case. Bronx.
Did you say Mark?
I would.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Alright, can you guys not press them?
Yeah, we're not. wait, so really quick. The DAs were just competing with China's endemics and wildlife and cartels.
Yeah.
Oh.
Talk soon.
We'll let you know when we get it.
Yep.
Once we get it. I just got it.
Wait, Oh, yeah, Alright, we'll take it.
Okay.
I'll just
Minute 20.
Yeah. We won't have a dog.
There's no.
There's no dog.
Is there any evidence?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's like,
but can you
like-
call for it?
yeah, can you call for specific part? It also would be
Wait,
extremely
so will you be like paraphrasing the evidence?
nah.
Can you send the evidence just to make sure you guys don't care?
Yeah, call
Wait,
it.
I'm just like
No,
not,
just so I
it's not
can.
paraphrasing, I'm just like not gonna be reading every single highlight there, it's like, that's just like debate stuff.
But you add new words in between them,
Yeah.
which there's.
I'm not adding new words.
But we can't verify that.
Yeah,
I mean-
we, okay, whatever, just
We'll
just
send
send
it.
send the doc and then we can paraphrase it.
Um. Our face-to-face liaison parties.
Wait, we don't know where she, can we just set a mark? It's gonna be, we don't know where she's gonna get to. Like,
Period.
there's so much in the doc. Can we set a mark after the speech?
Well, can you send what you might read?
Yeah, I'll send what I might read, and if I add anything.
Alright, that's awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's just gonna be like.
Sorry, just the politics, send politics, and then I'll send the results, just your parts.
Is it gonna be on different docs?
Two emails, but it's gonna be in order. I mean, you'll just want that, so it's.
Yeah, okay. Well, we can't slow down.
Yeah. Yeah, and then. Rizzo, it's gonna be our case like case now.
This adds after your case or this adds?
This adds on our case.
Just got one email. Is it 2 or 1?
It's two.
Is the one that you sent first?
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay, this is it. Is there?
There's 2 dollars. There's 2
Wait, like about how many cards is the whole thing?
What?
About how many cards is the whole thing?
I mean, we sent all the cards, I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just
it's-
cards.
Okay. Alright. I'll give rebuttal. Don't worry, it will be slow, so I'll sign first too. Okay. Our case. On trafficking beats, we can see that extension that way, so you can't buy any of their terms. On trade, first, all of the responses are about AI working, but our evidence doesn't account for this and indicates that even though AI might work, it concedes that 100% of vehicles are going to be scanned, which is why the quantity of the vehicles being scanned outweighs the quality, which is our Vasquez 24 evidence, which indicates that even post-Affirmative, post-AI being developed, and post-surveillance becoming better, it doesn't matter because the quantity and 100% of vehicles being scanned means that trade is going to decrease by 31% for our weighing 2020 evidence. Moreover, even on their specific evidence, they say that like trade is being bad right now, but our evidence indicates that trade is at an all-time high at $864 billion. On relations, they say that relations are bad, but we can see that relations are way too strong between the United States and Mexico, and trade co-ops this argument, because if trade is so important to the United States and Mexico, then relations aren't going to get bad because they're so important to them that they're always going to be collaborating. They're going to collaborate on it to solve for relations. On their deals. On deals. First, they say that we're competing with China, but first we argue the best way to compete with China is to have a better economy and better trade with Mexico, which is why our evidence indicates that there's more nearshoring that happens when you have better trade, which is why there's more companies that come into Mexico and work with the United States. On balance, this co-ops their China argument because more people are working with more people in Mexico are working with the United States, which decreases reliance on China. Second, they read pandemics, but we would argue, and also there's no reason why AI goes. There's like a spillover into other markets. There's no warrant on this. On pandemics, first we would read that there's other ports of entry for pandemics to happen. For example, they can come in through like the Canadian port, which means that there's not necessarily just one port where pandemics come in. Moreover, we would argue that pandemics are going to be solved with better trade technology. It's not that just the United States that has pandemics, it's other countries too, which is why with better trade and better relations with Mexico, we can see that there's pandemics that are being solved everywhere. On cartels and wildlife trade, we would argue that wildlife trade is going to happen either way, which is why we can't solve the root cause. FCA 23 indicates that groups seek huge sums of money generated by wildlife products on the Asian markets. Groups are flexible and adapt to new restrictions with strong regulations, which means that wildlife trade is going to happen either way. It's not necessarily just with the United States. Pandemics are going to spread in either country, but the best way to solve that is with trade and better economic growth. On their case. On bubbles. First, it's not unique. Investors invest anyway. Okay, investors invest anyways. AI is not just, the AI they're talking about is not software, it's hardware, which is why we're investing in things like cameras and drones, which are not AI technology that's actually going to be improving our market. Moreover, the bubble is not defined by what they're talking about. They don't understand economics at all. We would tell you that AI investment is up by 12% to 27%, which means that their speculation should have already occurred. Moreover, we would argue that defense contracts are already happening. For example, the conflict in Taiwan, Russia, and Israel already mean that defense contracts are at an all-time high, which means that speculation should be high right now too. On Mexico backsliding. First, it's not unique because Mexico doesn't actually take the leverage back because their argument is that they're interdicting more immigrants, but our evidence indicates that they're not going to actually solve for this issue by affirming. We would argue that they're not, what? Okay, we would argue that immigrants are, like, even if you were to affirm, there's not going to be a solvency for this issue because they're not going to be stopping the, flow of immigrants. Then, they argue that Mexico backsliding is going to spill over. There's no evidence that actually says this. There's no contextualization in their evidence also. On cartels, first, we would say that in Mexico we're not going to solve the problem because we've been in Mexico for the last 20 years, but there's never been cartel breakdown. Moreover, we would argue that even if you were to, they're not controlling the link into cartels because cartel activity in Mexico and Latin America is not at the border. It's at things like in Latin America, which is why if we have better relations with them, then we can actually control the Latin American border, for example, which is a root cause to cartel crises. Third, we would argue that money from fentanyl still comes into the United States because our evidence from Calkin 23 indicates that fentanyl can fit into one truck, which means that cartels can always find a way to get fentanyl into the United States. Moreover, we would argue you can turn it because deportations fuel cartels. AS24 indicates that when we deport more people into Mexico, it means that they have a join or die mindset, which means that there's going to be more people joining cartels because they don't have job opportunities in Mexico to actually get them, which is why they join cartels, and this is a prereq to their case because they can't fight back. On elections. First, we would argue that on elections, first you can turn a migration as a rhetoric debate that Trump will always win as Republican ground that Democrats are catching up to. It's actually going to harm Democrat perception, which is why Della Haas 24 indicates that they insist that they can make better enforcement, but they're just going to be catching up to the Republicans. They're just going to be matching Republican rhetoric, not making anything new. Okay.
We're going to take a little bit of prep before Bronx.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, that was 12 seconds.
We're going to take a little bit.
Alright, that was 24 seconds.
Alright, cool. If I get first question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you paraphrase your last response on cartels?
On cartels,
Yeah.
which one was that one?
It was the term.
Treat it as an analytic.
AS24.
Treat it as an analytic.
I mean, all the highlights are in the
Okay.
doc.
But we'll treat it as an analytic.
Okay.
I mean, yeah,
Like,
sure.
my question is, was it paraphrased?
You can treat it as no, it wasn't. It was read off the highlights, but also you can treat it as an analytic if you don't want to.
Okay.
Okay, I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
Let's talk about politics, right? So, if Republicans have been saying since 2016 that they're going to put more surveillance on the border, they're going to expand border policies, and suddenly, like Harris is coming up and saying that, oh, hey, I also want to expand border policies. What does that look like for Harris?
It looks like people in the middle who aren't necessarily already voting for Republicans and these
Wait,
people,
that doesn't make sense because
Wait, can I just
people,
finish?
yeah, sure.
People who care about the border, our evidence isolates that 53% will literally vote off of immigration policy.
Your
So if
evidence
Kamala ups hers to at least match Trump's, then that's enough incentive for people already kind of leaning towards her to 100% go out and vote for her. Those people wouldn't do that in the status quo.
That doesn't make any sense though, because if people want stricter immigration policies, and Trump is the one saying, hey, I have the strictest immigration policies out here, Harris is just saying that, oh, I'm going to match his level. Why are people not just
Yeah.
voting for Trump if they
Matching,
want stricter
because
policies?
they also like other policies of Kamala, but they're not going to vote for her because she doesn't have the same immigration policy as Trump. But I'm going to
Okay,
take a
yeah,
question.
go ahead.
Okay, are you just voting for trades? You can see it go through other contentions, right?
Wait.
You can go for terms.
You can go for turns.
Right, trade and
Yeah.
turn. Okay.
Yeah.
Trade and turns.
Yeah.
Okay, you can get a question.
Let's talk about, let's keep talking about politics, right? So, if we're 2 weeks into the election, if Harris adopts a policy that's like, oh, now I'm gonna put surveillance on the border, who's gonna buy that she's actually going to be like making progress?
A lot of voters, and wait, she makes progress because the bill is passed and surveillance is expanded.
No, wait, surveillance is gonna be expanded before the election happens. You're telling me that we can put up like huge
We
towers,
don't-
we
okay.
can develop
I
huge
can
scanning
clar- I
technologies
can
on the
clarify.
border before the election
We don't
occurs?
need to put the scanners on the border. We just need Biden to say he's going to do that, and that's the thing that sways voters. It's a perceptual argument. When people hear Kamala's implementing this $1 billion program on the southern border, they're going to want to go ahead and vote for her because they care about immigration.
Perception's
But
just a
can I ask you a
buzzword.
question?
That's not how
It's
it works.
not a buzzword. It's how politics and voting works. I'm
No.
gonna get a question.
Voters
I'm gonna
don't
get-
vote.
Can I please get a question?
If I could just respond to that really quick.
Yeah.
Voters don't vote based off of what they think Kamala's gonna, like
Wait.
Harris is gonna do. They
But-
vote
but they
off
actually
of,
do it. Like-
No. But the problem is that if the surveillance technology can't be implemented before the election occurs, and voters already know that, oh, she's only doing this because of the election, there's no voter that's gonna think that this is a sustainable
Okay,
policy and that
so-
she's gonna carry this through in her term. You can have a question.
None of that was in like rebuttal, but also, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay, you can have a question.
How's your day been? We have 5 seconds.
Oh, it's pretty good. What about you?
Not bad.
Not bad, okay.
Okay. How much prep do we have?
We took like 25, so we have 235.
Starting No. The attack rate. That was 210. We have 15 seconds left. Oh, we did It's going to be our case and then their case. You can throw away the disad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spectacular.
Okay. Okay. No. Okay. It's gonna. Okay. Time can start on my first question. There's no offense on bubbles conceded. There's no offense on backsliding conceded. On cartels, there's one term. They say that more people join cartels when you affirm, but it's not actually contextualized, and it makes no sense if we cut off cartels, then more people don't join. And we would say that politics links in because if there are worse relations with Mexico, which it definitely happens under Trump, that means that more people go to cartels. That definitely outweighs. Also, there's no link into extinction. You're not voting on the turn. At that point, it's stem politics. The most recent evidence predicts a Trump victory in the electoral college. That's conceded. That means that right now Trump is going to win. At that point, in the status quo, we are on our way to extinction because if Trump is elected, countries will see the U.S. will stop defending democracy of Trump, so China will escalate in Taiwan, North Korea will attack South Korea, Russia will escalate further in Ukraine, which brings in global powers, leading to a global nuclear war, and that leads to extinction through nuclear winter. They don't give a single response on one, the uniqueness, and two, the impact. That means that right now we are on our way to extinction. Then, go to the link. The only way for Kamala to win is to pass the affirmative, which changes the election. Immigration is the #1 issue for voters, and they want to pass border laws. Also, Biden policy affects Kamala's polling because she can take credit for it because she's the vice president. They only give one response that's not overtime in their rebuttal. All they say is that the affirmative doesn't do anything because people who want increased surveillance are voting for Trump anyway. We would say that voters want what Kamala is doing, and the only thing holding them back is Kamala's weak border policy. That means that they will go to Kamala after you affirm because they have other things that make them want to vote for Kamala. Go to the link. It's try or die. Insofar as we win, Trump guarantees extinction and he's winning now, you must affirm to try to stop it. It doesn't matter how much the link is mitigated. In essence, the uniqueness controls the direction of the link in that if Kamala is losing, you must affirm. Also, lean out on time frame because we tell you that specifically that our impact triggers on January 20th when Trump is inaugurated, and Medaway on specificity, we literally give you an exact date when our impact triggers, they don't. It's easier to vote on time frame here because it's, more specificity means higher probability. The only way they can win is if their time frame triggers first, but they haven't given an actual time frame that they are going to say is perceptual and immediate, but none of their evidence says that. Look at it. Go there. They can see that trade is bad now and extinction outweighs, which kicks them out of trafficking and relations. On trade, they say that AI doesn't work. We say that it does, and they can see that their evidence is literally awful. Their evidence is a couple policymakers saying that AI isn't good. At that point, extend the disad. We will say that trade is very slow now. Not that trade isn't okay. Extend the disad. We would say that trade is We would say that trade is very slow now, not that it's bad now. The only response they give is that it's good now, but it's very slow. Insofar as when you affirm, AI increases and the AI can scan things a lot faster than humans can scan. That means that you are affirming for their impacts because we would say that there is more trade in the affirmative because we can scan things faster. That leads to decreased wait times, which leads to more trade. Also, they can see that there's a trade shutdown in the status quo means you're not affirming. Also, they don't read any evidence and don't respond to the indict on theirs. And on the Vasquez evidence, it's literally awful. You can't negate because they are not winning. That trade gets worse in the affirmative, and they've conceded they've conceded the time frame on politics means they're affirming anyway.
Real Lincoln
Yeah.
that Trump causes the act.
Yeah. And we read a link that Trump decreases trade.
What was the warrant?
What was the warrant? Because Trump doesn't cooperate. Yeah, Trump doesn't cooperate with Mexico as much as the current administration does. We didn't read that Trump does the act. We didn't read that Trump does the act.
Okay.
case, weighing their case. It should be relatively slow. We're going for trade. Trade in Mexico is at an all-time high. Their top trade partners and wait times are lowering right now because the products are 60%, lowering by 60% because the products is why current tech is fine. ACT implements a plan to scan all vehicles, making scanning go to 100%. More surveillance means more inspections, which is why wait times would double. AI cannot solve back for the increase in wait times because there is a lack of manpower at the border, and the disruption of 100% vehicles would overwhelm the quality of technology. Trade would shut down completely, and at least it would decrease 31%, even if 100% scanning isn't implemented, which still triggers our link of a recession because it still would lead to a 12% decrease in GDP. Moreover, the construction of technology would decrease trade because lanes would, the construction of surveillance would shut down lanes, which would decrease trade. This would devastate our economy, reducing GDP 12%, causing radical political movement, and catalysts with World War II were similar from recession. History repeats itself. It would cause nuclear war. Nuclear will lead to extinction because of severe environmental effects and radiation. They first say that AI works, but no, they've conceded there's a lack of manpower, so you cannot implement the AI at the border. They also conceded that AI is not enough because of other reasons, like 100% scanning, where the quality or the quantity overwhelms the quality. They've also said that trade is slow now, but no, our evidence has indicated there's a 60% decrease in wait times right now because of other projects, nor have they given you a single piece of evidence that trade is slow now because it is actually extremely fast because we are not scanning everything. They then say that Vasquez is awful. There is no reason why this evidence is awful. It is great evidence saying that wait times will double, nor have they given you a counter evidence how much wait times will increase. Let's go to the weighing. On their weighing, they tell you that time frame is instantly, but no, their impact is either climate change or an escalation of multiple hotspots around the nation, around the world. You cannot believe what just happened in November, nor can you believe what will happen in January. At the earliest their time frame is maybe January. Then they say Trump doesn't cooperate as much, so trade cuts, but that's completely false. Trump prioritizes the economy. He's someone who cares about trade, and he cares about things like Mexican cooperation, is specifically trade. They do not win a link into our argument. They say it's try or die. No, because we'll win a link on their case. It's also not try or die, or we'll just win time frame. On time frame. They've conceded that construction triggers the link, meaning that the act would instantly go into effect because the second you affirm, you would have to build lanes, which would shut down trade, which would reduce our recession, meaning we are winning the time frame debate. And so you prioritize us first because our argument comes first. You can maybe solve for climate change, maybe solve for other impacts later. They've also crossed out their time frame anyway. We're winning the time frame because the second you affirm, you're going to be building things, which shuts down trade, which is why it doesn't even matter. Okay, and a prerequisite. Economy matters much more in the concept of the election. This makes sense. People in Pennsylvania and swing states that actually matter don't care about border policy as much when they're hundreds of miles away from the border. They care more about the economy because they see the headlines. When they see all of a sudden huge headlines that the entire border is being shut down and trade would be protected to decrease, they're less likely to vote for Kamala, which is a direct link to the voters' argument, even on their case. The Delahaz evidence in case deals with politics extremely low. They just tell you that Republicans aren't going to, or migration is a bunch of Republicans, but it brought, Nikki read in rebuttal in time says that migration, if Harris shifts to migration, it doesn't matter because there's very little rhetorical front. The promise that Democrats are actually better at handling it. Opinions are going to trend in the restrictionist directions. There is no way that Harris can just catch up to Republicans and Trump because Republicans have been claiming that the border is an issue for the past 8 years, and Harris is all of a sudden, in the past month, just declaring that she's so pro-migration. It's a clean balance.
Yeah.
What evidence says construction triggers the link?
Also, it makes a lot of sense because our argument is just saying that when we put more surveillance at the border, by law we have to be scanning 100% of vehicles. Even if it's not 100%, we're still scanning substantially more vehicles. And that triggers our link because the moment that you're scanning more vehicles, it means that trade is going to be slowed because it basically means our southern border is going to become a new TSA.
Yes, okay. I've read Ramirez. I'm sure the judges have read Ramirez. That's not what it says. It says increasing by increasing the amount that we scan to 100%.
That's not Ramirez.
Okay, you're linking.
That's Vasquez.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So what did Ramirez say then?
Ramirez says CPV construction is expected to shut down lanes for 6 months.
Okay, exactly. So that's not increasing. The link that you extend in summary is that increasing like scan to 100% triggers the link.
I also
no.
extended construction. So there's
No, you didn't.
I'll read my pre-extension. It says, moreover, the construction of technology would decrease trade because it would shut down the lanes for months. That's in the pre-extension and in the front line.
That's not the internal link. That's not the internal link into recession.
Yeah, but it's the time frame way.
No, the internal link into recession is that when we increase to 100%, then we see recession.
Actually, it's not.
But
because
we don't increase to 100% until you fully implement the affirmative. And insofar as you say that construction takes a while, that pushes back your time frame incredibly.
Can I clarify my argument? I'm just going to respond. So the 100% scanning is not hinging for our argument to happen. What the weighing evidence from U Chicago says is that the barriers around the world, they find that barriers around the world reduce trade between neighboring countries as much as 31%. A country that is concerned about border security increases inspections. Not only does it say that one, yes.
Wait, you read that in doing something though?
No, it was in case.
You just said the weighing after this.
The weighing.
Wang.
W-A-N-G.
Wang.
Nikki
Yeah,
Wang.
me.
Wang.
Yeah.
Oh, not her. Like, the argument we're making is that one, construction would trigger the link because it just shuts down ports of entry where all of a sudden you can't trade anymore. The second argument we're making is that by the time you actually build it, you would also increase inspections, which causes GDP. Our argument is that as long as you shut down trade, a recession happens, and they have conceded that because of construction, you shut down trade.
Okay, cool. You can take one.
On politics.
Okay, wait, I have a question. So, once again, if Republicans have been declaring that surveillance is our biggest issue, the border is our biggest crisis since 2016, if Kamala suddenly comes in and she's like, oh wait, actually you're right, the border is a really big issue and I want to put more surveillance here too, what does that look like to moderate voters who are trying to vote for the better representative?
They want to vote for.
Oh, Trump's just gonna be like,
I think
she just said that we were right since 2016. Like, that's literally our argument, right? That opinions always always shift towards the Republican direction. Republicans and moderates have been hearing the Republican narrative of like, we want to increase border security for the past 8 years. All of a sudden, in the past week, Harris passes this bill.
If
It
you want to
looks like
stop
she's
talking,
doing
you
it for
can
votes.
respond, but that's we have 15 seconds left of press starting now. Okay.
Alright, that's 15. Where's the tip? Alright. Politics playing trade. Everyone good for me to start? On my first word. Extend politics. Most recent evidence today predicts a Trump victory in the electoral college. Even if he wasn't pulled, don't adequately capture Trump voters because they don't pull white working class men. At that point, in the status quo, we are on our way to extinction because Trump is elected. Country will see the U.S. will stop defending democracy. China will escalate Taiwan, North Korea, attack South Korea. Russia will escalate further nuclear risk because global powers leading to a global nuclear war that leads to extinction during winter. The only way for Kamala to win is to pass the average, change the election. Immigration is the number one issue for voters, and they want tougher border laws. Also, Biden policy affects Kamala's polling because she can take credit for it because she is the vice president. They give one response to their rebuttal. They just say that the affirmative doesn't do anything because people who want increased advance are voting for Trump anyways. They extend it through ink. Remember, we would say that voters want what Kamala is doing, and the only thing holding them back is Kamala's weak border policy. That's what they care about. If she switches it even to the same extent of Trump, people are going to vote for her. That means they go to her after you affirm, and you cause Kamala to win the election, or give a chance of Kamala winning the election. They just extend it through ink. That doesn't respond to the analysis. On the way, all they say is that our time frame takes a while because Newport takes a while, but their argument is also Newport means they take a while too. It's try or die. Insofar as we win that Trump guarantees extinction, he is winning now. You must affirm to try to stop it. It doesn't matter how much the link is mitigated. The uniqueness controls the direction of the link. In that of Kamala's losing, you must affirm. That means the response doesn't even matter in the first place. But also, you lean off on time frame because we told you specifically our impact triggers on January 20th when Trump is inaugurated, and the way of specificity. We literally give you a specific date when our impact triggers. They don't. It's easier to run time from here because more specificity means more probability. The only way they can win is if their time frame triggers first, but they haven't given an actual time frame. They say it's perceptual and immediate. None of their evidence says that. It's conceded. They don't read an internal link from construction into recession. Only 100% scanning into recession triggers their immediate perceptual impact. There's no warranting, no specific date. Prefer our case on 100% specificity. You know Trump gets elected and inaugurated on January 20th. They say crossover matter, but they aren't specific as one on construction. On construction probably doesn't start tomorrow, and two, the construction takes an unspecified amount of time, and we were 100% scanning at an unspecified time. Also, they clearly see the link when Trump gets elected, trade between countries like Mexico and the countries across the global centers. They try to link in with e-commerce, doesn't matter. There's no evidence they read on people caring about the economy, immigration, doesn't think people are incentive on trade. We have said that trade is slow right now. 90% kids conceded in their last speech. All of our evidence is better than theirs. There's just political scientists saying that it might be this, might be that. Our evidence, our Zalga, U.S. Customs says it's critical to ensure and surveillance with new tech and streamline the process. Hold the line. Their impact should have happened. We've seen spring.
Okay. Remaining 36 seconds.
way, here it is. Okay. The thesis of our argument is that we shouldn't sacrifice 20 years of American and Mexican prosperity for an ineffective policy. Wait times are declining by 60% right now, and we only scan 20% of vehicles. A vote for the app means a vote for an unnecessary bureaucratic step because we scan 100% of vehicles per Fry 21. Even if you don't buy that we're skimming 100% of vehicles, we're still scanning substantially more vehicles because the definition of surveillance means that we're surveilling more vehicles, which is why even if you don't buy this, trade is going to decrease by 31% empirically because there's more congested trade. Our argument also says that when we increase construction, it also slows down trade. This is a separate link, and they fully concede this argument. We say that when there's construction, trade is slow because trucks can't pass through, which is why our GDP is going to decline by 12%, and radical political movements and economic stressors means that there's going to be more hotspots and it's going to be nuclear war. They give two responses. First, they say that trade is slow now, but our evidence is from political science experts. It's really good. It says that trade is down, trade wait times are down by 60% right now, and it makes a lot of sense. You can break the clash on the warranty because we give you the warrant that the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act is the reason why trade is down, trade's wait times are down right now because both countries are focusing on decreasing trade wait times. Moreover, on the weighing, if we're winning this argument, we're winning the rounds. We tell you that if trade is decreasing and the economy is really bad, voters are not going to be voting for people like Harris because she is the current representative in Congress. That makes a lot of sense, and you should break the clash here because independent voters, for example, in Pennsylvania, are the ones that are going to be voting on these issues, and they're so far from the border that they don't care about border issues as much as they care about things like the economy, for example. Our argument triggers instantly because fiat means that the construction starts tomorrow, but theirs is in January, which is why as long as we're winning this argument, their impact of war starts at the same time. It should break the clash on the linked time frame weighing, which says that our argument is going to happen the moment that you affirm the resolution, and that's where you're voting. Even on their case, they're not winning it there because they have conceded the fact that it's going to look like we're just catching up to Trump because Trump has been saying since 2016 that he wants to enact stricter border policies, but what happens when Kamala enacts stricter border policies is it's going to make voters seem like Trump is the more reliable representative to pick. It's not about how voters are picking Trump right now, it's about how voters are going to pick Trump if Kamala says that, oh yeah, I guess you're right.